Today, we're looking at the best 10 roguelikes to play in 2024. Some are newer, some are older, all are worth your time to play. Let's dive in. Our first game is Rogue Legacy 2. It's a sequel to a classic, but it still feels pretty classic itself. It's in the Metroidvania family of roguelikes, where the purpose is to explore an ever-changing castle, slay enemies, and collect treasure, all in a 2D platformer style. While the castle is always changing due to it being procedurally generated each run, it is split into different areas, some of which are inaccessible until you defeat certain bosses and gain new abilities. The more you discover on your run, the bigger legacy you are able to leave behind. The original Rogue Legacy was great, but the sequel expands on it in every way. Each character is unique to each run. There are plenty of different classes to choose from, as well as random traits that affect your character. Anything from vampirism, that makes you a little squishier but you steal health, to synesthesia, that makes your character and enemies leave behind a trail of colors. Thanks to the humongous skill tree, your characters grow ever more powerful with each run, ensuring that you get a little deeper into the castle each time. There's intense platforming, traps, and a wide cast of dungeon defenders to take on, and when you're inevitably slain, you're treated to a quick view of your entire run on an end screen. Few roguelikes are able to do what Rogue Legacy 2 does, and it's absolutely worth a shot. Up next is Dead Cells. It's a bit older than Rogue Legacy 2, but ironically it feels a bit more modern due to its fluidity of animations and movement. It feels really good to move around in this game. It's in that same 2D platformer Metroidvania vein as Rogue Legacy, but this game is directly split into individual stages. This can give a little variety to the stages you go to, especially if you have the DLC. In Dead Cells, the gameplay varies depending on the weapons you have. They come in 3 styles: brutality, tactical, and survival, and you will find scrolls that upgrade these styles as you go. Brutality tends to be swordy melee type weapons, tactical tends to be ranged bow weapons, and survival is more shieldy. That said, every category is way more creative than I just alluded to, and you'll unlock more and more weapons as you go. You always get 2 weapons and 2 skills that correspond to these typings, forming the style of your run, and no matter what you pick, you are guaranteed to have an exciting time. These weapons and skills can always be switched up on the fly as you discover new and more powerful items, and the RNG of Dead Cells lends to adopting and switching different playstyles as you go. Only recently this game stopped receiving updates, as it had been continuously developed since 2017. Even in my most recent foray, there was quite a bit of new content for me to cut my teeth on. Any way you cut it, Dead Cells is a roguelike masterpiece, and it's worth playing. Moving into the top-down, twin-stick, quote-unquote, shooter perspective is the real OG of the roguelike renaissance, The Binding of Isaac. There have been many different iterations of this game since its 2011 release, with Rebirth's 2021 DLC Repentance being the most updated version of this game. I'd recommend you start with The Binding of Isaac Rebirth and decide if you want any of the DLC from there. You play as Isaac, and you fight a variety of nasty monsters with your tears, with the ultimate objective of defeating your mom. Any number of extremely random items that you find along the way will help you achieve this objective. Depending on what you get, and how you use your tarot cards and pills along the way, along with your own skill of course, will determine how successful your run will be. This game isn't easy, and in true roguelike fashion, you'll be taken out by one of the monstrous bosses or enemies along your run. I'll be honest, I'm surprised that somehow a game full of disgusting scenery, gory monsters, poop, and irreverent biblical references holds a firm place as a cornerstone of this entire genre. But once you play it, it does begin to make sense. I remember dumping countless hours into this grotesque roguelike back in the day and falling in love with the genre. If you haven't tried it, you need to. And with the absolutely lugubrious amounts of updates this game has received, There's no better time to take on the evil of your mother than today. Out with the tears and in with the guns, because the next game on this list is Enter the Gungeon. Enter the Gungeon still has that twin-stick shootery type nature of The Binding of Isaac, but you throw out that whole grotesque style of The Binding of Isaac, and add a dodge roll and some freedom of movement, and then you make everything gun-themed. The enemies? Gun-themed. The bosses? Gun-themed. The guns? Gun-themed. It is called Enter the Gungeon, after all. Back when it came out in 2016, it was my absolute obsession and favorite roguelike of all time, and for good reason. You get to choose between 4 great characters to play as, and every foray into the Gungeon is filled with excitement and wonder as you dig a little deeper and try to find new, unique guns. This is the first game on my list today that offers up a little bit of co-op action, and like all of the other games so far, it has been well loved and laden with updates. In my playthrough for this video, one of the updates introduced the Mimic, and it got me a couple of times. Enter the Gungeon is fun. It's well made, it's a classic, and you should play it. I'd probably consider this next game, Hades, as the objectively best game on this list. Supergiant Games is a phenomenal studio, and the time, care, polish, and just overall production value that went into this game is absolutely breathtaking, and it deservedly received a lot of accolades at the Game Awards and elsewhere in games media. You play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, and you are working your way up through the underworld to get to Olympus, home of the Greek gods. Many of these Greek gods, Athena, Poseidon, Zeus, Dionysus, and the like, will help you achieve this goal by granting you boons. You get to choose one of 6 unique weapons to try to accomplish this every run, and from there, it's up to you. You are, of course, able to get some upgrades between runs that will help you get a little bit further each time, and every time you die, characters will react, and you'll get to know just a little bit more of this game's story. More than any other roguelike I've played, this game really reacts to you. Bosses remember you, characters will comment on how you just died. It gives a lot of heart to what can sometimes feel like a heartless genre. If that's not enough to convince you to play, I'll leave you by saying that the art is absolutely fantastic. Also, Hades 2 is out in early access, and that's a blast too. Now's a great chance to play the original Hades before diving into the sequel. Taking a break from the more action-oriented roguelikes on this list and into the realm of deck builders is Slay the Spire. It came kind of out of the blue back in 2017 and absolutely nailed how this type of game should be. You play as one of 4 climbers, each with a quest to get to the top of the tower. Each character has a unique deck of cards specific to them, and the more you use a character, the more cards you'll unlock for them. Each character has different synergies that you can utilize as you play. My favorite character, the Silent, has a lot to do with poison and doing a lot of low damage, no cost attacks with shivs. The Ironclad is all about getting big damage numbers. The Defect has a cool orb thing going on, while the Watcher has many different stances to play with and master. Each have a wide variety of options for choosing cards, and you'll have to make clever choices depending on the RNG. Once you know how to play, this game rarely feels unfair. When I die on a run, I usually only have myself to blame, and I always learn a lot along the way. Slay the Spire is the quintessential deck building roguelike. While I think a lot of roguelikes lend themselves to portability, I find this game especially addictive on my Steam Deck as well. Few games fill me with nostalgia in the way that FTL does. Even though it released well over a decade ago in 2012, there has been no game completely like it, and few have come close to living up to it. From the moment that first sci-fi soundbite hits you, FTL, or Faster Than Light, will have you hooked. It's a spaceship simulator where you control the crew of a spaceship, racing your way through different sectors to escape the rebel fleet that's close at heel. You'll fight a lot of spaceships, pirates, rebels, and others, as well as make a lot of tough choices doing a huge variety of random events. You'll need to use your scrap wisely. Should you upgrade your weapon systems, get combat or defensive drones, upgrade your shields, hire on additional crew, get a mind control module, or just repair your hull so you can fly another day. FTL is full of these choices, and you'll need to weigh each advantage carefully to ensure you're making the best choice for your crew. Sometimes you'll run into a group of people who is willing to upgrade your doors for really cheap. Other times, it's a setup to have their Mantis crew board your vessel. It's easy to get invested into your run only to have your ship get obliterated by some random pirate ship somewhere down the line. FTL can be a bit overwhelming, but fortunately, you can pause at any point to get your bearing on the situation, and in true roguelike fashion, there's always the next run. For our next game, I want to get back into the action roguelike chaos, but before I do, I need you to give this video a quick roguelike if you're enjoying it. Thanks. Now, Roboquest. Roboquest is a fast-paced first-person shooter roguelike where you play as a reactivated guardian robot and you're quote-unquote exploring the desert with your human friend Max. This game is stage-based, much like Dead Cells, and like Dead Cells, you can be rewarded for going quickly. You can carry up to 2 weapons at a time out of a vast arsenal, and depending on the class you pick at the beginning of your run, you'll get different special abilities, like turning invisible for sneak attacks, or little helper robots to fight alongside you. Roboquest has a great perk system to boot as well. The game's cool cel-shaded comic book style makes the environments pop, and it is replete with the onomatopoeia sound effect words on your screen as you fire your weapons. The key with this type of game is its fluidity and ease of play, and I think Roboquest absolutely nails it. It feels great to run, jump, slide, and rail grind around the procedurally generated stages, and it feels especially good to use the varied arsenal to destroy ample amounts of enemy robots. This game recently left early access, and it's definitely a polished product, but there are still plenty of regular updates to keep things fresh. It is definitely worth going on a Roboquest. When I was making this list, 9 of the 10 games came pretty clearly. Some are beloved classics that have never been topped. Others are more recent games that are absolute must-plays. There are a lot of reasons to give these games a shot in 2024, but when it comes down to what's worthy to include in the waning slots on my list, it was a tough choice. I remembered seeing a couple trailers for a new game coming out soon, and I still hadn't played the prequel. I gave it a shot, and decided if it was any good, it would get a spot on my list, and man, am I glad I tried it. The next game is Void Bastards. Void Bastards really caught me by surprise. I play a lot of video games, and this one somehow slipped past. It shares the first-person shooter perspective with Roboquest, a lot of DNA with FTL, and a heavy dose of inspiration from System Shock, but it's definitely its own thing. You play as a revived convict thrown into emergency employment by an AI type thing called Steve, and you're sent to pillage ships in a ship graveyard section of the galaxy. These ships, of course, are not in normal operation, but they have a wide variety of ghostly and powerful type enemies that you'll need to watch out for. Now, unlike Roboquest or most action roguelikes, which carry the ethos of kill, 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 kill or be killed, Void Bastards rewards selective confrontation. Ammo is a scarce resource, and if you have a lot of ammo, you might be able to take down a powerful enemy like the Screw. However, no matter how you cut it, it would definitely be a drain on your personal economy. It's incentivized to sneak around certain areas and even cut your losses to avoid certain parts of a ship to stay out of harm's way. Your clients, as the game calls them, will inherit items from former clients on your playthroughs, but Even as you play more, combat is still not incentivized because even when you can take down a tough enemy, they don't drop anything. You'll always need to be scavenging food and fuel, but for the most part, those are always attainable to collect. You'll need to take bigger and bigger risks to find high-ticket items to upgrade your characters. Void Bastards also has this cool comic book art style and some cool sci-fi stylization that's worth checking out. Earlier, I alluded to Blue Manchu's next game, Wild Bastards, that's coming out this year. I played the demo, it's excellent. Despite the titular and artistic similarities, they are definitely different games, so no need to skip over Void Bastards to get to Wild Bastards. Honestly, I'm glad I gave Void Bastards a chance. You should too. Finally, while this list is in no real order, my latest roguelike obsession, Risk of Rain 2, gets the final slot. Risk of Rain 2 is absolutely gnarly. You play as a survivor looking around for various items that will boost your power, as well as the teleporter that will transport you to the next zone. While you do this, there is constantly a timer counting up, and the longer you play, the harder the enemies get. You'll need to balance your search for items with your need to push through the levels and take on the bosses while they're still at a manageable difficulty. Inevitably, you will die, and die, and die, and die. This roguelike, like many, will find you dying a lot. But if you push through, you'll be rewarded with some of the most hectic action, coolest item synergies, and beautiful landscapes that you've ever seen in a roguelike. Both the survivors that you play as and the environments that you go to vary up the gameplay enough that you'll always want to give it one more run, especially if you're playing with friends. If I could play any game on this list, it would be this one. Also, for the month of June, this game is the headliner for Humble Choice, so you can get it pretty cheap that way, but it's worthwhile regardless. And that's the list. This is by no means the definitive guide to roguelikes. I may have missed some of your favorites. Darkest Dungeon and Spelunky come to mind. I've missed some of my personal favorites as well, but as good as any list can be, I think these are all excellent games and well worth your time in 2024. Leave a comment with your favorite roguelike and subscribe if you're interested in more content. Bye!